49ers Web Zone No Huddle podcast, part of the Odyssey Network. I'm Al, he's Brian, and it is Vikings week. And to kick off our show today, we have with us from the Pioneer Press, Vikings beat writer, Dane Mizutani. Dane, thanks for being here, buddy.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
So, Dane, you're from Hawaii. Did I read that about you right?
I am. Kind of crazy how I end up in Minnesota, right?
Yeah, from Hawaii to Minnesota. Where are you from in Hawaii?
I'm from Oahu, so grew up in Illinois, actually. But a lot of my family still lives on Oahu. You can blame my mom for landing us in the Midwest. So
oh, really?
Doesn't make sense, but it's nice to get back.
Dude, so I did my honeymoon in Maui, and it's just anywhere you go from there, it's just downhill. Like it was like the most beautiful place I've ever been to, and just nowhere I've been yet anyway has even compared. It's crazy. It's really nice there.
No doubt.
All right, Dane. So to start off, the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell comes in last season and goes 13-4, and year two hasn't gone well. They're 2-4. Their only two wins have been against the Panthers and the Bears, and last season they were 11-0 in one-score games, and so the record was probably a little bit inflated because that's just not sustainable. But they let some vets go this offseason. Tomlinson, Thielen, Dalvin Cook. What's the vibe in Minnesota with the team right now? Did the fans expect to take a step back, or are they upset with where they are right
now? I think fans are pretty upset with how this season has gone to this point. But I think if fans were also being honest with themselves, like 11-0 in one-score games was completely unsustainable. And if you even just take 3 of those away and they go, instead of 11-0 in one-score games, 8-3 in one-score games. Then instead of a 13-4 football team, we're looking at a 10-7 football team. Then if you regress this year, it's not all too surprising considering the people that you mentioned they let go this offseason. But I think when you, in a lot of ways, overshoot expectations in year one of this new regime, you go 13-4, I think fans are going to expect progression and not regression. But I think deep down, this is probably what the Vikings were even last year. They were just winning the one-score games that they've lost consistently this year.
Yeah, I would say that largely the Vikings are what they are last year and this year because of Kirk Cousins. And as 49er fans and content creators, we are intimately aware of Kirk Cousins and how he's playing and what he's doing in Minnesota because 49er fans know the love affair that Kyle Shanahan has had with Mr. Cousins. And honestly, like when you look at him statistically, he is always one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of performance on the field. But he's 48, 37-1 as a starter, right? You look at those stats and you think that record should probably be better. I would almost say that Kirk Cousins is kind of the antithesis of Jimmy G when it comes to the QB wins debate, if you will. But he takes a lot of heat, not only from fans of other organizations, but fans of the Vikings organization as well. And a lot of that comes with a perceived inability to win the big one, whether it be a primetime game, a playoff game of which he's only got one victory. Where are you on Cousins? Do you think he gets a bad rap? And then past that, his contract is up this year. Do you think he's back with the Vikings next season?
It's a weird kind of dynamic that I have when I think of like how I perceive Kirk Cousins, because when he got here, if you recall, the offseason that he ended up in Minnesota, the year before that, it was another horseshoe good luck season that they had. Case Keenum was the quarterback of the Vikings that year. They go 13-3. They win at home against New Orleans via the Minneapolis Miracle. And the all-in push that following offseason was for Kirk Cousins. So when that happened, my initial reaction, because I think most people have this reaction with Kirk Cousins, is he a guy who's going to elevate this team and take it over the top? I did not think so. And for 4 and 5 years, I've been proven right. What I will say is he's a heck of a lot better of a quarterback when I just watch him than I really gave him credit for. I think from afar, I kind of just reduced him to this guy's not that good. This guy is the best of the worst. But can he really help you? while all those things may be true, he's also, I think, firmly like a top 12 quarterback in the league because of the way he just plays the position. There are a lot of bad quarterbacks in the league, and I don't think Kirk Cousins is one of them. So it's kind of a weird push-pull that I have with him, because I was probably one of his biggest critics in town when he first got here. And now sometimes I find myself defending him because I'm like, it could be a lot worse. At the end of the day, though, I do not think that he will be the quarterback of the Vikings next year. And I think the writing has kind of been on the wall when they didn't extend him this offseason. They pushed out some void years to lower his cap hit. But instead of doing the void years to lower the cap hit, you could have just extended him to lower the cap hit. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah did not do that. I think it was kind of a fail-safe just in case something like this happened, where you knew deep down you're probably not as good as 13-4. And if you take a step back and you God forbid, miss the playoffs, if you had extended Cousins the previous offseason, then I think you have some egg on your face. I think this was an out, and I think they will take that out if things don't turn around. Now, if the Vikings get hot, they win a bunch of games, they win a playoff game, then he probably will be. I just don't see that happening.
Now, the trade deadline is 12 days away. And as 49er fans, we've kind of looked around it. Is there another way for the 49ers to upgrade? This isn't a question about whether Kirk Cousins will end up in San Francisco. We know that ship has sailed. Thankfully, we don't have to talk about that anymore. But our guy, Bobby Saleh, out there in New York, really needs a quarterback. And I know that there has been talk of whether or not Minnesota could trade Kirk Cousins. It sounds like Kirk has come out and essentially kind of quashed all those and said he wouldn't waive his no trade. Is that true? And if Kirk isn't going to be a trade piece, does Danielle Hunter get moved? Are there pieces on this team that you think will be gone by the time the trade deadline ends?
Yeah, I do get the sense that Kirk Cousins is not waiving his no trade clause. So I don't think that trade to New York's happening. The Schefter report from ESPN basically used the term unforeseen circumstances as a way to couch like there's absolutely no chance in hell that it's happening. This is conjecture, not reporting, but to me, the unforeseen circumstances is if Brock Purdy suffered a huge injury and Kyle Shanahan was like, I got to have my guy. I don't think that's happening. God forbid, I hope it doesn't, because I just said it. And I think the 49er fans would kill me if something happened to Brock Purdy this weekend.
We'll edit it out. There'll be no proof.
Yeah.
We'll take care of it.
But no, I don't foresee him getting traded. I think he'll finish out his contract here and then try and latch on somewhere else. Anyone who watched the quarterback special on Netflix this offseason, I think you can get the sense that he likes his family time. He likes to be grounded, and as far as knowing where his family is going to be day in, day out, week in, week out. I don't think he'd do well just parachuting to New York for 3 months. I don't think he'd pull his kids out of school to do that. I don't think he'd move his wife, Julie, to do that. So I don't think he's getting traded. Even if there was a deal, I don't think he'd say yes to it. I do think Danielle Hunter is someone who is definitely on the table. It makes sense. If you're a contender and you need a pass rusher, he is tied for the league in sacks. And I think he's a special player who had 2 years where he struggled with injuries. And I think had he not had those injuries, he'd probably be someone who had a long-term contract, had been extended, but he wasn't. The injuries kicked the can down the road with the contract discussion. And we hit kind of an inflection point last offseason where he signed that 1-year deal. But if you're going to lose Danielle Hunter for nothing next year because of your cap constraints heading into next offseason, I think it would make sense to get what you can from him at the deadline. The only thing that could hinder that, I think, is if the Vikings can pull off the upset on Monday Night Football, if they can parlay that into a victory at Lambeau the following week. But if they get rolled, like I think they could this week, and they lose to the Packers at Lambeau, I think all bets are off, and you could see him get moved.
Do you?
Yeah,
think, I was just going to ask about compensation. If they let him go, I mean, they could be in line for a 3rd round comp pick, but again, that wouldn't be until 2025. So are you thinking that pretty much anything in terms of draft capital in 2024 could get it done, or does it need to be like a 3rd round pick or higher?
I think 2024 draft capital probably means more to this team right now, just with the way they're trying to build this thing. But yeah, I that's a good point that they could just wait it out. But I really do think that it's been coined a competitive rebuild here. I think it's looking more rebuildy than competitive-y right now. So you'd want more picks on the front end than kicking that can down the road an extra year.
Yeah,
Gotta love that if you're Justin Jefferson, right? We're doing a competitive rebuild. That's
Yeah.
a little scary.
Yeah.
With Cousins, not that I want to spend the whole time on him, but he's just kind of like to me, and you're kind of in purgatory with him. Like you said, he's not a bad quarterback. And when you look at some of the play this year, he's certainly, maybe a top 15 guy. He's kind of in that Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, where you're kind of in limbo. You got to pay them a lot of money. You may not ever win anything with those guys. The Niners hope they're not going to be in that situation with Brock Purdy. They hope he can be a franchise guy for a long time with them who can win something. And he had his worst game as a pro last week. But I'm looking at the numbers for this Minnesota defense, Dane, and I haven't watched a ton of the Vikings this year, but they're second worst in completion percentage, 75% allowed, and their QB rating is 103.3. That's the 3rd worst in the league. They've struggled at home against opposing QBs. Now, 2 of those were Herbert and Mahomes. But I kind of see this as a get-right game for Purdy after a bad week. What have been the issues with the defense? Coverage, pass rush, and are you worried about that too, the Niners attacking them through the air?
Yeah, honestly, I think you can do whatever you want against this defense. I think if the Niners come out and say we want to run the ball down their throats, I think whether it's Christian McCaffrey in the backfield or Jordan Mason, or I don't even know who else you guys have back there, you'll be able to do it. I think the offensive line will be able to move the Vikings defensive line backwards enough to if that's the game plan that Kyle Shanahan employs, it'll work. We saw it earlier this year when the Vikings played the Philadelphia Eagles. Anecdotally, it was just one drive, but over the course of the game, I think they rushed for over 200 yards. But anecdotally, they just lined up. They ran the same play like 11 times in a row, and they just gained 6, 7, 8, all the way down, scored a touchdown. So if the Niners want to do that, I think they'll be able to do that. If the Niners want to rebuild Brock Purdy's confidence a little bit, I think they'll be able to do that too, because I think the secondary lacks, at least at the cornerback position, it certainly lacks experience. I think there's guys that are starting to come into their own, but their best cornerback's Byron Murphy, and he's being asked to play inside. He's being asked to play outside. He got torched by Keenan Allen 3 weeks ago. It's a tough ask following that guy all around the field. But Byron Murphy, I think he's being asked to kind of punch a little bit above his weight class as far as being that shutdown corner. The Vikings are going to blitz the heck out of the Niners this weekend. I'd be surprised if they didn't. If you just look at their blitz rate, they send it like way more than anyone in the league, or at least rush 5 or more. They do that more than anyone in the league. I think they do that a lot, though, because of their inexperience at secondary. The thought process being, if we can speed the other quarterback up, at least we won't give up a big play. But I think having watched at least some Brock Purdy, if they're sending blitzes, he's going to find the hot guy and he's just going to move the ball upfield. So long-winded way of saying I'd be shocked if this wasn't a get-right game for San Francisco in the offense, just based on what we've seen out of Minnesota so far.
And with Justin Jefferson not available, flip to the other side of the ball. I know they won against Chicago last week. Chicago hasn't been known as much of a defensive powerhouse, which is odd because they have a defensive head coach. It's kind of like, hey, what would you say you do here? But where do you feel like you can see this Vikings offense finding success against this 49ers defense?
I don't know. Question mark. I don't think it'll be running the ball. Their offensive line is graded out quite well this year. I think PFF has them as like the number 1 ranked pass or run blocking, number 3 ranked run blocking. I think that's largely because they have a left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, and a right tackle, Brian O'Neill, who are 2 of the best at their positions. I think interior, the Vikings continue to kind of struggle. And that's why I don't see them getting a huge push and being able to run the ball with consistency against just a behemoth 49ers front seven. Uh, they haven't been able to run the ball with much consistency this year. There's been good games here and there. I think their best bet is just trying to at least get the ball out quick to guys like TJ Hawkinson. Jordan Addison has been someone who's been very impressive this year. But I say I don't know, and I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but we saw what this offense looked like last week without Justin Jefferson. First game he's missed in his career. And the Vikings couldn't move the ball against the Chicago Bears. They really struggled to move the ball against that defense, which, to your point, is not a very good defense. Now, I find it hard to believe they're going to be able to move the ball against arguably the best defense in the league. A lot of what this Vikings offense does is hinged on the amount of gravity and magnetism that Justin Jefferson has. When it's not there, I think they just become a heck of a lot easier to defend.
Dane, it's not even Halloween and you're already beat down, my man. You're like, there's like no hope in Minnesota right now. All right, last question before we let you go. I was going to ask you prediction, but I based on what you are telling us right now, I don't think there's any way you're going to not say Niners. So I'll ask you this for the last question. Kevin O'Connell last year came in and, well, he did a good job from what everybody said. Actually, won 13 games. He did really well. Do you think he's still the guy long-term for this team? And do you not see the issues right now as sort of falling on him, or where are you on him?
I absolutely do. I think he's the right guy for the team. I think they bought into everything. He's kind of come in, with the idea of how to build the team. I think the culture stuff, I think it can fall on deaf ears if it's fake. And I don't think it does, because I think it is real. I think he's kind of all about, the way he says. And I think overall, just the way the league's trended, having an offensive-minded head coach isn't a bad idea. I think it's a good marriage with Brian Flores coming in and running that defense, and Kevin O'Connell basically just saying, that's yours. It's me and you together. But I'm not concerned. There are fans, certainly, in Minnesota that are, pushing the panic button. Is Kevin O'Connell the guy for the future? I think it's going to be fine here. I think when they start to at least push forward into what this could look like with a new quarterback under center, I think he's the guy, a type of coach that you want kind of tutoring and bringing a young quarterback along. I think there's a chance that this team could turn the corner. The schedule does soften up a bit. I just feel pretty doom and gloom about this game in particular, because I don't see how it could happen. But I don't think this team's going to completely free fall, be in the running for Caleb Williams, Drake May. I think they're too good for that. I think Kevin O'Connell is frankly too good of a coach to let that happen. So yeah, absolutely. I think he's the guy long-term in Minnesota. I think this is just kind of an example of you're really overachieved in year one, and you're kind of paying for it by proxy in year two.
Dane, I got to let you know, there are fans in San Francisco that wonder if Kyle Shanahan is the long-term answer at coach. So every fan base has those guys that you're like, nah, what are we doing here? But hey, before Al sends us out, I do have one last question based on a little bit of intel we received. Just wondering, how jealous are you that Taylor Swift is dating the Chiefs tight end and not the Vikings tight end?
Oh my God. I think I'd have to quit my job if it was. What a moment for the NFL. I don't mind that they leaned into it. Why not? So,
I don't either. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And they are leaning into it. That's for sure. All right, Dane, we appreciate the time, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks, Dane.
All right, Brian. There you have it. Even the Vikings beat writers see no hope for this week. He was like, it's funny because I don't know how many people will see clips of this show, but some of the questions we asked him, like his face kind of glossed over. Like,
but he was like,
no,
the question about where their offense can find success, and like you could just see him, you could see the wheels turning, and he was like,
not much,
nowhere. I have no idea.
You could do whatever you want. It just seemed. Yeah, it's bleak. It's bleak in Minnesota.
I
feel that way too. And we'll go over some of the metrics, but I feel like with the Niners, they're a little bit beat up right now. Trent Williams. Today's Thursday. These guys may not practice all week. These guys don't need practice.
This was the first day of practice because
it's first day of practice going into Monday. But Debo didn't practice today. Greenlaw didn't practice. Trent Williams didn't practice. McCaffrey didn't practice. Isaiah Oliver didn't practice. So there's guys hurt on the 49ers right now. It looks like with McCaffrey, the oblique injury is just going to be a pain tolerance thing. So he's kind of day to day, week to week. We'll see how he goes. They are on turf. I would wonder if they'll be more careful with the guys with lower body stuff. We'll see how that goes. Having said all that, I still think regardless, I don't see how the Niners can get threatened much in this game. And I feel like the Niners are coming out of the Cleveland game. They're getting a lot of slack for it. You're hearing stuff about Purdy now. There's questions that really shouldn't be there when you dive into what happened with the Cleveland game. Okay. It was bad weather. They had Debo get hurt, and Debo was a big part of the game plan. If you look at the runs that went to Ray McCloud and things like that, they were probably for Debo. Debo was a big part of what it seemed like what they were going to do. You had fluky stuff happen where the ball goes off Ayuk's hands. That would have been a touchdown on a 3rd and 13. Purdy overthrows McCaffrey. That's a touchdown. We talked about it. It would have been 24 points or whatever, 21 at the end of the first half. You miss field goals. They played like the worst game I remember them playing in a really long time, and they still were a missed field goal away from winning it. So there's sort of a lot of knocks going around in the Niners this week. And I feel like they're going to come back. There's no weather in the dome, and they're just going to put an ass whooping on the Vikings. I really feel that way. And he talked about you could decide how you're going to attack the Vikings defense. I do feel like it's going to be a Brock Purdy game. When you look at some of the numbers, completion percentage, this defense has allowed 75% completion. Scoring percentage, they're 14th. Baker Mayfield, so they're 3 home games. They're 0-3, the Vikings. Baker Mayfield was 21 of 34 for $174, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Justin Herbert was 40 of 47 for 405.
That was an insane
game. Just doing whatever you want to. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Mahomes was 31 of 41, 281, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Quarterbacks have absolutely lit this team up on their home field. And I kind of feel like that's what the Niners are going to do, especially if McCaffrey, whether he plays or not, he's going to be hurting. I think they're going to go to the air. I think you're going to see a lot of Ayuk. You're going to see a lot of Debo, and it's going to be a Brock Purdy get-right game this week.
Yeah, I am actually interested to see. That's a good point. I like that point you brought up about being on artificial turf. Not only when it comes to kind of those soft tissue, lower body injuries, but also for McCaffrey, right? It's an oblique, which, every time you're landing on that hard artificial turf, I'm sure that's going to hurt. And then for Debo, it is a shoulder, essentially a shoulder stinger, right? He landed on that shoulder. He said that he got hit. He said it was the first play and he got hit, I think, with a helmet, right in the bicep. And he said his whole arm went numb. He was on Kay Adams saying that. And then Kay Adams was asked him about a stinger. And he's like, I don't know. I've never had one. So it's perhaps the team was like, you got a stinger. You can't tell anyone you got a stinger, right? We're just going to say it's a shoulder injury. But regardless, maybe you don't want him again hitting the turf. So it'll be interesting to see. But even if Debo and McCaffrey don't play, I still think this team has enough with Kittle, with Ayuk, with Jennings, with Ray McCloud, with Elijah Mitchell, with Jordan Mason. I think they have enough. But the thing that I trust Kyle to do more than anything is go into a game with a game plan to game plan around holes on his offense because of injury. It's something that he's had to do a lot in San Francisco. It's part of the issue, but and there's a big difference between game planning around them and then adjusting mid-game to, the focal point of your offense going out, and then arguably the second focal point of your offense going out, right? With McCaffrey going down and Debo going down. That's going to be tough to get to scheme around mid-game, regardless of who the coach is. So, if those two don't end up playing, I still have a lot of confidence that Kyle can scheme up a game that will, put points on the board for this 49ers offense. The Vikings just aren't very good. And, like you said, they've got 2 victories. One of them is against the winless Panthers, and the other one is against the Bears when Justin Fields went down. So it wasn't even Justin Fields that they beat.
Who was it? Tito Baggins? What is that guy's name? I don't even know their
Frodo Baggins. What? I don't know.
Look at. I have no idea what this guy's name is. Hold on, I gotta look this.
But yeah,
so good for him. He's an undrafted free agent who won the backup job, but I don't know your name, my friend.
Yeah, so I'm not concerned about the results of this game. I said that last week, and obviously we lost, but talking about a completely different animal now. But yeah, I mean,
not
it's
Tito Baggins, it's Tyson Baggett. Baggett?
Baggett. All right.
Bagent. I don't even know how to say his name.
Oh, okay. Baggett.
No,
Yeah, I don't know.
Bagent. I don't know.
That guy, QB2 in Chicago. Yeah, and that's who they beat last week. And it was still like 19-12 or something like that. So yeah, this Vikings team, it doesn't scare me. I think the 49ers, even with some of those injuries, even if McCaffrey doesn't play, even if Debo doesn't play, I still think they have plenty to come away with a victory on Monday night. And not only that, but you're playing Monday night Kirk Cousins. So yeah, there you go as well.
Primetime Kirk Cousins. Typically not very good there. But I was also thinking, like, what ways can the Vikings attack the Niners to beat them? Where do the Niners have any weaknesses? And our buddy Akash put up a stat that I thought was interesting, because the one thing that does, I guess, worry you a little bit about the Niners, and even going in this game last week, is a rushing defense. It hasn't been terrific yet. And Akash put their Niners are 16th in yards per carry on defense. They're 20th in rushing success rate and 22nd in rushing EPA per play. So if you get a team that's has a strong running game or a running quarterback, maybe like a Lamar or somebody like that, it could get a little scary. But Kirk Cousins is a statue, and the Vikings have allowed 52 QB hits this year, and their running game has been not good. And I was kind of surprised with them. Like, they just traded for Cam Akers because it hasn't been good.
Right.
Alexander Mattison never at any point to me looked like a starting running back. He had some big games against bad rush defenses last year, but and they've struggled this year with him being the lead guy. He's only averaging 3.9 yards per carry. In Minnesota this season does not have a rushing touchdown. So any way that they can attack the Niners, I just don't think that they're going to be able to do it. And the other thing is, this team is first in the NFL with 13 turnovers. They have a 19.7% turnover rate, which is second worst. They've lost 9 fumbles, and they've fumbled 13 times in 6 games. I mean, that is atrocious. And you have a Niners defense that flies to the ball, that's going to be pissed off. I think they're going to get some turnovers. I think they're going to get some sacks. I think the Niners are going to have some short fields. And if they are a little beat up on offense, that's going to make up for it. The defense, to me, did not have a good game last week. And I've seen people say a little bit of both. Oh, it was only 19 points. But again, if you watch the game, I don't think they played their best by any stretch of the imagination. And I think they're another unit that's going to come out pissed off this week. You're going to see some turnovers. You're going to see some short fields.
Yeah, and like Dane said, I think they are largely a non successful run team because the interior of their offensive line is pretty poor. They've got 2 great tackles, like you said, which helps Kirk Cousins in the passing game. But I think this will be a game where you see Hargrave, Armstead, and Kinlaw really feasting on not only Kirk Cousins but that run game as well. I have no concerns about this Vikings offense, specifically because Justin Jefferson's not out there, and Addison is good, but he's a rookie, and he's not Justin Jefferson. So and TJ Hawkinson can be, could have a good game and could exploit the seam a little bit, but I have all the faith in the world in Fred Warner and Talanoa Hufanga to be able to handle that. So just not a whole lot of concerns here. I think, in fact, they will likely, even if CMC and Debo are out, I think they'll likely start another 30-plus point streak on Monday night. And I think they're ready to avenge that loss. I don't think it was a loss that they needed. I don't think they're a veteran team. I don't think they needed a wake-up call, but I think that they will take this wake-up call and absolutely wake up against the Vikings. And it's going to be a long game for Vikings fans, I think.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if Kyle, I don't know if these guys listen to the noise. They have to hear some of this stuff, but I'm wondering if Kyle is going to kind of hear some of the stuff that's been said about Purdy, and he's going to put Purdy in a spot to maybe, it's going to be a 2-3 touchdown pass game for him. I'm really kind of feeling that this week for Brock. Because again, a couple plays go a different way. Last week doesn't happen the way that last week happened. So, and if the Niners win this game on Monday night, they're going to tie the Steelers for the most Monday night victories of any NFL team with 53, which is insane when you think about it.
They are a prime time team, and I love it. I love it.
Oh, they always have been. And they always have been.
Yeah.
They always have been.
Yeah.
That's why I think like guys like me too, like who grew up on the East Coast, like that's probably, I mean, Joe Montana had a lot to do with it, but like watching them on Sunday night and Monday night when you're a little kid and them just kicking the shit out of teams, like, you know,
Appealing.
that can kind of move you in that direction, you know?
Yeah.
So, all right, Brian, I want to do one other quick look at a schedule, but before I do that, I mean, do you want to do game scores?
I was gonna say, yeah, let's do a
Does it even
score
matter?
prediction just because we have.
I don't want to say this because they're going to lose. Because this is a very difficult game, and we have to predict the score for it.
Yes. 49ers 34, Vikings 17.
I'm going to say 35-20. That's where I'm going to go. I think the Vikings maybe get like a late touchdown in the fourth.
Some garbage time points, yeah.
All right, what I wanted to look at, Bri, really quick is we all think, we've all been saying for a while, the home field is going to probably come down to the Eagles and the 49ers. And I think that home field is huge. You want to get the games in San Francisco. We've seen what the Niners do when they have home games. The NFC Championship at home, we saw what they did to the Packers. Like it's very important for them to get the game there, I think. But there's another team that I think is really good, and they're 5-1. Sneaky is the Detroit Lions. You may be thinking like, wait a minute, Jared Goff, let's see how this year goes. But if you look at the Lions schedule, I looked at it the other day and I was like, holy shit, they could win 13 games. So I wanted to see, let's assume that the 49ers are going to get 13 wins, 12-13. Let's assume they're in there. And I think that's fair, right? The way the Niners
I absolutely think that's fair.
12-13.
Yep.
Can either one of these teams get to 13 wins? Let's say 13, because that's a big number. So I'm going to start with the Lions, Brian. We're 5-1. So they have 11 games left. I guess I'll give you the teams and we'll both go win-loss. Do you want to do that?
Okay.
All right.
Tell me I would say tell me who they're playing and where.
Okay. So Lions at the Ravens this week.
Oh, that's a good game. I believe that's a phenomenal game. Are the Lions giving points? They're giving points, right?
Yeah, I think the Ravens are 2.5 or 3. I think they're 2.5.
Yeah. You're in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I watched that Baltimore team play the Titans and not look very good. That offense still under new coordinator, and it still doesn't really look all that great. Their defense has been playing better. I think this is a great test for the Lions offense. Man, I'm tempted. I'm tempted to give it to the Lions as a victory. But I still think they're a young team that needs to learn how to win games like this. And I know they won that first game in Kansas City against the Chiefs, which, the Chiefs were at full strength. The Lions were at full strength. But I think I got to see it more. So I'm going to give it to the Ravens.
Yeah, it's going to be bad weather.
I think the Lions cover the spread, though.
Going to be bad weather. David Montgomery is probably not going to play.
Yeah.
We don't know about Jahmyr Gibbs.
It hurts my fantasy team.
Me too. Yeah, I have him in my fantasy team too. He's been great. They've just beat the Falcons, the Packers, the Panthers, the Bucks. I think they're feeling good about themselves, and I agree. I think they lose this game too. It'll be a good game, but I think they lose. So I'm at 5-2. Week 8, they're home against the Raiders.
Victory.
Yeah, agree. Okay. Then they have a bye week, and they go to the Chargers.
I'll say they beat the Chargers. I think Brandon Staley is an awful coach. I don't know that Brandon Staley survives the season.
Agree. Then week 11, they're home to the Bears.
Victory.
Great. Home to the Packers, and they kick the shit out of the Packers at Green Bay.
They've played them already, right?
Yeah, they kicked the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Thursday night in Green Bay, 34-20.
Division games are so difficult.
I think the Packers suck. I don't think they're any good.
I don't think they're great, but I also thought the Cardinals sucked, and I feel like they gave the 49ers a decent game, at least in the first half. I think the Packers will be wanting some revenge. I'll still give it to the Lions, but I think that's a tougher game than it appears right now.
That it seems. All right, so week 13, they're at the Saints.
I can't figure the Saints team out, man.
Neither can
I just can't.
Weird
Their
team, great
defense,
defense so far.
yeah, yeah. But at the same time, that great defense got lit up by CJ Stroud this past week. So
True.
kudos to D'Amico and what he's doing down there. I'll give it to the Saints though, just because it's in New Orleans.
All right, so you have them at 9-3. I'll actually give that one to the Saints too. Week 14 at the Bears.
Lions.
Agree. Week 15 home to the Broncos.
Lions.
Yeah, easy fucking schedule, right? Week 16 at the Vikings, who may be in sell mode at that point.
We'll go Detroit.
Or I should say looking into next season mode at that point. All right. Week 17 at the Cowboys.
Ooh, so that's a phenomenal game too, because I imagine that is going to be for seeding in some way.
Yep.
I will give that to the Cowboys because I think the Cowboys will be more desperate. I think the Lions will have already won the North.
Because I think they're going to play the Vikings, who maybe starting Nick Mull. Who knows if the Vikings are done by this point, last game of the season. I'm giving them a win there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree?
You're giving them a victory over the Cowboys?
Oh no. I'm sorry. Did I not say the Cowboys? I agree with the Cowboys are going to beat them. I have them as a loss. Because looking at the next week, they have the Vikings, and I think they'll beat the Vikings, who have probably nothing to play for at that point.
Yeah.
So assuming they lose to the Cowboys, and we said the Ravens, which are kind of coin flip games, and we also said a loss to the Saints, another coin flip game, 13-4.
Yeah,
if they stay healthy, right? Because that schedule is so easy. There's no reason if they stay healthy and they keep playing the way that they are right now, that they can't win 12, 13 games this year, which is amazing because the Lions.
And that's where I think you're right. And you brought this up before we started recording, that I actually think I would agree with you. The Lions are probably the bigger threat than the Eagles to get that number 1 seed, because we're about to go over this Eagles schedule, and the Eagles haven't looked great.
No.
Their offense doesn't look like it did last year. I think they're missing Shane Steichen. They're doing some great things. They're running the ball really, really well. Jalen Hurts hasn't been throwing the ball as well. I believe he has 7 touchdowns and 7 interceptions so far this season. But their defense has been good again. I don't know if it's not quite. I don't think it's at the level it was last year. At least that defensive line isn't, but they're still playing really well. But let's listen to the schedule, because it is brutal.
So this week 7, they are home to the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins win that game.
I do too. Now, Tua didn't do well with pressure against the Bills, but I just kind of feel good. This is another game where I feel like Tua takes criticism, and I feel like he's going to have a good game on a Sunday night. So I'm going to give that as well to the Dolphins.
And I have faith that Mike McDaniel, like Kyle Shanahan, can scheme around a team that he knows can bring pressure just by rushing 4. And I think that's what we'll see, a game plan very similar to what a lot of the game plans that Kyle Shanahan had against the Rams, in 2019, 2020, 2021, right? Where you're just trying to neutralize Aaron Donald.
Yeah, and the Dolphins lost to the Bills was a division game, which, all bets are off in those games. All right, week 8, they are at the Commanders.
That's a win.
I agree.
But that Commanders team is plucky.
They're plucky, but I think they suck. So I think the Eagles will be okay there.
I think they're poorly coached.
Week 9 is home to the Cowboys, which I'll spoil it. I'm going to give them a split against the Cowboys, so I'll give them a win here.
Yeah, I think they win at home.
All right. Then they have their bye week, and they go to Kansas City.
Yeah, Kansas City.
Man,
although so that's the thing, this schedule looked a lot worse at the beginning of the year. Kansas City hasn't been playing great, but that Kansas City defense has been playing really, really well. And so I think Kansas City wins this game, but it's not on the strength of Patrick Mahomes and their offense, but rather that defense that Steve Spagnuolo has just really humming right now.
It's hard for me to go against Kansas City at Kansas City. So I'm going to give Kansas City a win too.
I did lose to Detroit
Then
this year.
Then that's true. It's true. Week 1 though, week
Yeah.
1's always a
Yeah.
little fluky.
Yeah.
Then they got my mistress team, the Buffalo Bills, are going to Philly in week 12.
To Philly. I'll give that to Buffalo, and here's why. I think by that time Buffalo is going to have traded for somebody to at least help with the blow of losing Tre'Davious White. And like I said, this Eagles passing offense hasn't been great so far. And I think the Bills can bottle up their run game enough that, force Jalen Hurts to beat them. And so far this season, Jalen Hurts hasn't been playing like he can do that. Now, this is weeks down the road, but
right.
This is why it's predictions and I'm not a fortune teller.
All right. I'm actually going to give the Eagles a win here because I don't think they can lose all the games. I think they're going to lose in a row here. So I think the Eagles are going to win a close game here. And the Bills are struggling a little bit right now. They've been a little bit infuriating on offense. They have a ton of injuries on defense.
That Giants game was so weird.
Yeah, they just haven't looked right. So I'm going to give you gave them a win. They're 8-3. I'm going to give them I'm going to give them a win. You give them a loss. So okay.
I give them a loss. Yeah.
Week 13, 49ers are coming to town.
Loss.
You lose that game, motherfuckers.
That's Niners. Right.
Then they're at Dallas, and I said a split, right? So I gotta give them a loss there.
And I would give them a loss there too. And I think mainly because they're just the physicality of those two games against the Bills and the 49ers. It's going to take its toll. It just is.
So we have them going with 4 games left, right? I have them 8-5. You have them 7-6.
Mm-hmm.
Already out at that point, right? But let's see what else we think. So at the Seahawks, week 15.
I mean, I'll give it. I don't. It's hard because I have them on a 3-game losing streak right now. I just can't predict a team that talented to lose 4 games in a row. So I'm going to give them a win.
Yeah, and I think at this point, if the records hold true to what we think, they're fighting for the division with the Cowboys at this point.
Right.
So they need a win here. So I agree. Then they have the Giants at home in week 16.
Win.
Yeah, Giants are terrible. Cardinals at home.
Win.
Agree. Giants at New York.
Win.
Agree. So
11-6.
You have them 11-6. I have them 12-5 with a 4-game winning streak at the end of the year.
That feels fair.
So it's going to be. I'll tell you what. I think the NFC is really top heavy, but it's going to be a really fun race between these 3 teams if they all stay healthy. And I think the Niners are going to get to 12-13. Looks like Detroit's going to be there, and we'll see if Philly can handle that.
Here's the thing that I will say. Right, if for whatever reason the 49ers don't get home field, right, but it's the Lions who get it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm far more comfortable with that than if it's the Eagles who get it. Far more comfortable with that. So
Jared Goff does not have good
wouldn't be. I don't think that would be the end of the world. Obviously, you'd like it to be at home, but that Lions team is good, and I'm not trying to take credit away from them. But with that schedule, it's going to be hard to know just essentially how battle tested they are against quality opponents, because there's very few of those left on their schedule.
Definitely. All right, Bri. We'll see how this week goes. Again, I feel good. I think Niners are going to get back on track, and we're going to be feeling good going into the Bengals game.
Yep. And we'll be recording Tuesday because it's a Monday night game, and Al lives in New York, and he's not going to be recording at 1:00 in the morning. I mean, we love you guys as listeners, but that's a little bit excessive. So we'll be recording on Tuesday. That'll come out Wednesday. And then we will record our Bengals preview on Thursday. We'll see who we get in as our third wheel on that Thursday, but we'll get somebody for sure.
All right, everybody. Appreciate you listening. For Brian, I'm Al.
Later.